Good morning, everybody. Can you hear me? Amber, can you hear me?
Yes, Sally, I can hear you, and we have
Excellent.
participants joining in. So,
Excellent. Are you going to kick off as the moderator and then I'll start?
yes, I am.
Okay.
Perfect. Great. I guess we're also getting the participants okay on your voice. So, good evening, everybody joining in today's webinar, and welcome on behalf of QAI. Uh, we're going to spend the next hour talking about taking your Agile health to the next level of maturity with Sadi Alata of Agile Transformation. I am Amber Jamal of QAI Global Institute, and I'll be your host and moderator for today's webinar. We are excited to have Sally with us and for you to be able to join us for this presentation, and hope you find this session insightful. This is one of the first webinar in our 2015 Agility Health series. We have scheduled numerous webinars over the next 3 months or quarter on Agile overall, and please watch for mails and topics and dates. And if you're interested in viewing the previous webinars and be a regular participant, you could visit our QAI Global Institute website, and under the webinar page, join free for the link and get constant updates and participation details for upcoming series of our webinars. If you're not familiar with QAI, then in brief, we are a leading global process consulting firm in the space of operational excellence, focusing on information technology and BPO industry specifically. QAI is 30 years old, originating from Orlando, Florida in the US, and over 20 years in India and Asia Pacific. And we have been running engagements across various spectrum of clients across 30 countries, transforming organizations in their quest for process excellence and performance. Today's webinar is hosted by QAI Global Institute. And this arm of QAI is recognized and focuses on workforce development and competency building, professional development for IT, QA, testing professionals. You could visit us online to learn more about QAI's upcoming series of expert-led training courses, both in India and worldwide, popular conferences, globally recognized software certification programs. We offer top-rated instructors and thought leaders from across the world, coming from US, Canada, and internationally. And visit us at QAI website or QAI Global Services. If you're an Agilist, is most likely in today's audience, you could come to the website qaiagile.com. Before we get started today, I want to quickly go through a few housekeeping notes to ensure we have a great webinar ahead. As you would have noted, we have an hour or 60-minute webinar today, leaving aside 5 minutes for the initial introduction. We are going to kickstart with Sally in a minute or two. You'd have logged in using your phone number or registration provided over your email, and you may either mute your microphone and the phone will automatically be muted, or keep your audio on mute. We'll be giving, as a moderator, I'll be running questions on the chat window. In case you experience any technical issues today, you can immediately find assistance by chatting, typing out your concern on the chat window. A little before I hand over to Sally, I'd just briefly like to introduce our Sally as as today's speaker. Sally is known for very interactive webinars, and she would like you to interact at different junctures of the webinar. Pause for a Q&A session. At the end, 8 to 10 minutes would specifically be for Q&A. So keep your questions reserved, but at the same time, feel free to pop up your hand or type out your question in the window. And I, as a moderator, would interrupt Sally or take the questions or park it for later. And in case you'd like to listen to today's presentation later, or for the colleagues who missed out, a recording of the webinar along with a PDF copy of the slides will be posted onto you and on our webinar website. You'll find the links by clicking the Resources and Conference Webinars tab that we will, beg your pardon, on the Webinar tab that we will provide you over mail. Over to the speaker. Sally Alata is the president of Agile and Transformation and is an enterprise transformation coach. Her company is passionate about helping leaders transform their culture and build healthy, high-performing teams. Sally is a dynamic and engaging speaker who is thought leader in the Agile transformation space and has published several popular videos on agilevideos.com. She's an expert for PMI's lead community of practice and rated as one of the most popular webinar presenters, attracting over 2,000 worldwide attendees to our webinars. We're excited to have Sally with us today, and now I turn it over to Sally for the rest of the proceedings. Over to you, Sally.
Thank you so much, Amber. Good morning, everybody. And I'm saying good morning because it's about 6 o'clock in the morning here in Omaha, Nebraska in the United States, but I'm sure many of you, it's probably afternoon your time. So I'm going to ask you to, Amber just said I'm very dynamic, high energy. I am pulling all my energy in together right now, but excuse my voice if I don't sound as clear as I normally do. It's pretty early in the morning here, but thank you so much. I'm very excited to be here with you today. And share with you, obviously as an Agile practitioner and enterprise transformation coach, what we've been doing in the Agile space to help organizations and leaders sort of take the health of their Agile adoption to the next level of maturity. Just like Amber said, I mean, I really want you to be interactive through this webinar. While I'm presenting, I don't see the chat. So Amber, do me a favor, while people are sending questions, if you guys don't mind starting with the word question and then putting your question, I'm going to pause every now and then, Amber, and see if you can read me out some of the questions because I don't see the chat right now. I'm in full presentation mode. Okay.
Completely.
And if they're having any problems listening to me or hearing me, feel free to interrupt me, Amber, and let me know to speak louder or softer. But otherwise, we will go ahead and get started. So Amber already told you a little bit about me, and then what I'd like to share is, obviously, I come from a technical background. So I was a software engineer, both on the Java and the .NET side for many years. I became a web architect. So I really grew up through the technical field and started to realize that some of the problems we were having with getting projects completed efficiently and effectively had less to do with technology, and don't get me wrong, we do have issues there as well, but it had a lot to do with how we were designed, organizational design, and how the work was flowing between teams. Organizations really designed themselves to really have functional silos that hand off work to each other, where cross-functional teams are much more high-performing, and specifically what we call stable cross-functional teams. So I'll talk to you a little bit about that today. I've started agiletransformation.com maybe about 7 years ago. You can find us obviously on agiletransformation.com. If you are new to Agile, the fastest way to learn Agile for yourself or in your company is to visit agilevideos.com. We've published a ton of free videos, and obviously there's also premium ones, but there's so much learning that you can have there from agilevideos.com. And agilityhealthradar.com is obviously the website for the assessment tool and methodology that we're using, that I'll share some of it with you today. Wanted to also share that I have 3 amazing and beautiful young children. It's always nice to see a personal side. And I'm originally from Sudan in Africa, so I actually speak Arabic pretty fluently, but I've lived most of my life outside of Sudan and sort of grew up and have been in the United States for around 20 years now. So let's get started. This is the part where you get to interact with me, measuring team health. Here's what I want you to think about. Whether you are doing Agile or not. Well, I guess let me start with the group of people that are doing Agile. So I want you to think about this. If you have Agile teams right now, whether you're an executive or a director or a manager, or you are a team member, how do you think health should be measured? How do you know if an Agile team is doing well or not doing well? I want you to start right now in the chat posting what would you do? How would you measure it? I mean, you've got Agile teams around you. What are the signs that tell you that a team is doing well? Is it their hard metrics? Are there softer things you should be looking for? And if you are not doing Agile right now and you're just kind of interested in learning, forget about Agile. I'm just thinking about any project team. How do you know if a project team is healthy and is high performing? So I'm going to kind of exit out of my full screen and start to look at some of your chat responses. Go ahead and submit some of the answers. Okay, so we've got Alok saying burn up and burn down charts. If the Scrum is implemented, yep, velocity. Looking at the burn down charts. Okay, good. What else? If the sprints are failing regularly, so Sushil is basically saying if the sprints are failing regularly, then the Agile is in bad health. And failing really means that we're not getting our points done. Yep. All right, what else? Let me see a few more. Level of attitude overall. So Dirk is saying kind of just their general team dynamics. Team is performing healthy when the team trusts each other. Very good, Vershali. So you've got um, the softer side, right? That the team has trust and respect for each other, and they hold each other's back and sort of back up each other when there's a problem. Resources can't be part of multiple scrums. Utilization, so that's a very good one, Krishnamurthy. That's a very good one. Multitasking is a huge problem. Working overtime, Rajini, that's a very good one. Overworking people and lack of sustainable pace is a great measure. Problem appearing and resolved by team efforts. Yeah, so we call that collaboration, right? So if the teams are coming together well, and resolving problems, then we consider that collaboration. Daily Scrum meetings are healthy. Team is focused on the work, not just the people. If team is picking tasks automatically and delivering them, team velocity should be used for performance. Rajiv, that's great. You're talking about predictability there. Very good. All right, guys. So that's very good. Thanks for contributing all of that. So let me kind of go back here. So I think what you're going to notice about your answers is you gave me a combination of what I call qualitative and quantitative metrics. Many of you at the beginning talked about velocity. You talked about burn up charts, burn down charts. You talked about performance within a sprint. But then several of you realized that it's beyond that, that there are also some non-hard metrics that we do need to track. What's the trust level? Is the team dynamics well? Do the teams collaborate well? Are they stable? Are they multitasking or not? So many of the things that you came up with, I just want you to realize are both what we call quantitative and qualitative measures. So let's first of all, before we jump into and talk about how are we going to measure the health of an Agile team, I want to make sure that we all agree on what is the basic structure that is healthy for an Agile team and how does that structure scale. All right, so if you are obviously a team member, you care about this. If you're an executive or a leader or a senior manager, you care about the scaling concept. So let's kind of all make sure that we are level setting and setting the context. We call this the leadership triangle of an Agile team. Basically, in order for an Agile team to be healthy, we need to make sure that there's a product owner who leads the vision of what should we work on, why, and in what order. So they own the backlog. And they really need to be able to answer those three questions. What should this team work on? Why? What's the business value? And in what order? Remember, in Agile, we don't do high, medium, low anymore, because obviously you know what happens if you start putting things in high, medium, low rank, everything becomes high. And so we really just basically rank it, stack rank it, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. We also have the Scrum Master, and the Scrum Master we also refer to as the team facilitator. They are leading the process. So they are in charge of making sure that this team is self-organizing, healthy, and they also remove impediments. The solution lead on this side over here leads the technical vision. So the product owner has a business vision, someone on the team, and typically it's not just one person. Sometimes there's a solution lead from a UI perspective and a design. There could be a overall architect, but they know how to translate the business vision into a technical vision, and they know how to mentor, coach, and pair with the various team members so that they can really implement it. The team themselves figure out the how. So obviously they collaborate with the solution lead and everybody to figure out how are they going to solve the problem, and they figure out their tasks, who's really going to do what, and in what order. So in order for an agile team to be healthy, we want to have a very solid leadership triangle. We want to have a cross-functional team made up of all of the roles. I don't want QA people on their own. I don't want business analysts on their own, and I don't want developers on their own, all handing off work to each other. That is not high-performing structure. A high-performing structure means that the developers, the analyst, the tester, even the person that deploys, and potentially even a DBA part-time are all part of the team. Again, some resources are usually full-time, and there are some what we call shared resources. A healthy agile team should have a backlog, and this backlog should be prioritized and ranked top down. Many agile teams that are following this Scrum process also have iterations or sprints. If you are a Kanban team, and most Kanban teams are service and support. So service and support means that I'm not necessarily working on a project that has a deadline or scope. I'm doing continuous enhancements that are constantly coming in, bug fixes, enhancements. I might not need to have sprints because I'm just really using pure Kanban. But there are teams that are using Scrum or what we also call Scrumban, which is a combination of Scrum and Kanban together. Then they do have sprints and iterations. And they should have a release plan. A release plan is a high level sketch of the next several sprints and what we think we're going to do. Unfortunately, I've met many Agile teams that don't do a lot of planning. They really think that by going to Agile, they need to be flying by the seats of their pants and only plan out the next iteration. Again, like I said, if you are not on a project, if you are on enhancements and support, sure, we can accept that. But if you really do have a project and you have a release coming up in the next 3 months, you should have a release plan. And the release plan should outline the upcoming iterations and sprints and which stories are going to be done when. Even though we know that's going to change, the plan's going to change, but we do need a baseline plan. The other important aspect of a healthy agile team is a burn-up chart. And a burn-up chart is for every iteration, how many points did this team deliver? What did they get done? Okay, so measurement, hard measurement. I like for teams to track their points in terms of delivery for every iteration, but also the number of escape defects. And escape defects are defined usually by the team, but it's a defect that is found in production by the customer, or I actually have teams that also count escape defects found during regression testing or by the product owner. So you as a team will need to agree on what you consider an escape defect. Now let's talk about scaling. All right, one team, no problem, easy. Let's set up that team and make them happen. But what if I have a product line or a program or potentially even a portfolio? This is where in Agile we create sort of what we call the multi-team. And a multi-team could either be a program team, a product line team, or even a portfolio that has multiple sub-teams underneath it. And what really happens for this kind of a program or a product line is this group of people, usually the program leadership team is made up of the triangles below. So the product owner, scrum master, and solution leads are usually here. There's usually an agile program manager who kind of acts as the Uber scrum master across the whole program or product line. There is usually more of a enterprise or a solution level architect that coaches and mentors the other solution leads at the bottom or the technical leads. And there is usually what we consider the sponsor, or also referred to as the chief product owner. and this person guides the other product owners. Creating this setup is extremely important when you are scaling Agile. I've seen a lot of traditional teams kind of when they're scaling multiple teams, all they do is they just add an Agile program manager, but they don't realize there's an actual program leadership team that needs to be formed, and they will have a backlog. They will have a roadmap for delivery for the program or for the product line, and they will feed and do a lot of what we call discovery. They need to be doing some of the discovery work on some of the items that the sub teams are going to be working on. And so the sub teams are really pulling from this larger backlog and executing. Okay, now how would I know if my program team is healthy? So this multi-team, how will I know if it's healthy or not? Well, I need to know the health of the sub-teams. So the collective health of this multi-team or this program really is represented in the team health of the three teams, in addition to obviously the health of the leadership team here at this level. All right, let's get this more complicated. Don't be too overwhelmed, but many companies all around you now, large companies all around the world, and I would say almost all of the Fortune 500s, are starting to understand that I can not only have project teams that come and go, I need to start thinking about creating stable teams and actually designing or reorganizing my organization around the concept of stable delivery teams, not project teams that come in and go. And this is a maturity level. This is not something that your organization is going to do on day one. A lot of executives and leaders that we work with to develop this kind of a transformation strategy, we basically tell them, that's fine. If you don't have stable teams right now, during the strategy, let's just begin to design. If you had to design stable teams, which programs, which product lines would you align them around? Which portfolios? Because ultimately, your enterprise capacity is measured in terms of the number of teams that you have. And unfortunately, companies that are still sort of in early stages of adopting Agile, they can't tell you. They don't know how to answer the question of how many teams do I really have and what is my enterprise capacity. So again, this is a journey. This is not something you will start with right away. But many times as you are advancing and maturing in your Agile transformation, you're going to be piloting Agile, and then you're going to be scaling Agile. So piloting is really just trying it on one or two teams. Scaling Agile is beginning to create program teams. And then when you are ready to arrive at step number 3, which is an enterprise transformation, you will begin to redesign your organization and build an enterprise portfolio leadership team where you will really have a ranked enterprise backlog. This ranked enterprise backlog has quarterly deliverables. They feed a lot of your multi-teams, which are your other sub-portfolio teams or programs or product lines, and those feed the actual Agile delivery or service and support teams. You will also build communities of practice, and communities of practice is how a group of developers still come back together. So for example, I could have a testing community of practice, test automation community of practice. I could have a technical excellence. I could have a product owner community of practice. It could be around a role or it could be around a discipline. But it is extremely important when you're designing these teams to balance both. We don't want to go from one extreme of having functional teams to another extreme of having cross-functional teams but
Yes,
not having the
Sally,
communities.
on your slide, basic
Okay.
team structure, going back to it if
All right.
possible.
Sorry, my voice
Sunil
just went away.
Peter had a question.
Amber, can you read me any
Could
questions?
a solution lead be a group or combination of business analysts and technical folks?
Yeah, sure. I mean, our purpose of having the solution lead really is to make sure the team knows how to proceed from a technical perspective. So typically, it's not necessarily always one person. If you do have an architect or a senior level person on the team, they're usually kind of taking over that role. But it could be a combination of two or three people because everyone has their own specialty or expertise. to lead a specific area. So yeah, it doesn't have to be one person, but as a team, we should know who are some of our technical leaders. When we are stuck in something, who do we go to find an answer? Um, and when we're showing you the structure, our main goal is for you to make
Thank you,
sure
Sally.
you have
Another
people that
user
know how to
registered as
solve it.
test user was asking
I've been to a
if
lot of dysfunctional
the
agile teams
solution lead is
that
part of the
have been
Scrum
given a
team or
task by the
outside the
product owner
team.
or a mission, but there's no one who's a subject matter expert that knows how to solve the problem. We consider the solution lead part of the team. Sometimes they are shared resources. What I mean by that is usually if it's an architect, they're not 100% allocated. So I've seen what we call tech leads, and sometimes the technical leads really are full-time allocated to the projects. But if the level of a person that you have here is more of an architect, then they typically are shared. Maybe it's this architect, and they're spending a little bit of their time with all the three teams. And there may be potentially another technical lead inside every team. So this whole triangle that we just showed you, we consider all of that the team. The way to think about a team is if you have tasks for this team, if you are accountable for getting work done, then you're really part of the team. Outside people are mostly what we call stakeholders and interested people. They normally don't have tasks.
Thank
They
you,
basically
Sally.
just receive information and sometimes provide
Yeah, I have to
information.
ask some more
But if we are
questions. Sure,
relying on
please
you
carry on.
to complete a task in order for us to finish our work, maybe it's an architectural task or a guidance, then you're really part of the team. All right, I'm going to go ahead and proceed, Amber, and I'll stop again in a little bit to take more questions. No problem. All right, so what is the challenge with scaling Agile? Many of the companies and customers that we're working with right now do not know how to answer the question of how healthy are our Agile teams? Now that I've stood up 2, 3, 4, 10, 15, 20, or hundreds, we work with companies that have hundreds of Agile teams. How do you know if they're healthy? How are they doing? So historically, and this, by the way, I actually got from a real world client, because I asked them, I said, what problem are you trying to solve by measurement? And he said, well, we have no consistent measurement methodology. We basically have very subjective opinions for how the team is doing. You know, Scrum Master saying this, technical lead saying that, product owner saying this. Um, Maybe you have Scrum Masters and Agile coaches, everyone has their own assessment. The individual approaches are not repeatable, consistent, or comprehensive. So every team is trying to assess themselves, or every Scrum Master's got their own survey, their own way of doing it. Every Agile coach has their own survey. Trust me, we had our own, even within my own company and our Agile coaches, I think we had like 5 or 6 different versions of how we were going to assess teams. A lot of the data ended up in Excel or survey tools. There's little or no trending. So this idea of, okay, guys, where were we last quarter? How are we doing this quarter? And let me look at the last 4 quarters and be able to tell the story from a leadership perspective. Are we really growing? Are we not growing? What's the trend line telling me? There's really no cross team roll up. So this concept of combining multiple teams into a multi-team, which is a program or a product line, and being able to view their health was almost impossible for us before. And then, you know, my big thing also, honestly, when I've been leading many of these teams is I just can't hear the team's voice. I'm hearing a lot of noise. I hear a lot of what the product owners are saying and scrum masters. But even as an executive or as a leader, I want to hear directly from the teams, how do they feel they're doing and where do they need help? So the conclusion, I think, was we really don't know what we're doing and how we're doing. Um, this is the old way. We used to do team health radars manually during retrospective sessions, and we would basically say, "All right, guys, you know, we want to do a much deeper dive retrospective, and we want it to be beyond just what's working well, what needs improvement." That's kind of a very basic retrospective. We want to go deeper into all these different areas, and we want you to kind of put a dot from a scale of 1 to 10. Where do you think we're doing? And then let's look at this radar together as a team and let's analyze it. We did this for years. We also sent out surveys using SurveyMonkey. We put Excel sheets together. Um, and finally, we just realized this is all not scalable. This is all nice at the team level. It is just not scalable. This is not a way, even us for us as leaders, that we're going to be able to understand overall organizational health. So, um, We basically built Agility Health, and that's what I'm going to walk you through, is kind of a different way of assessing teams. So we needed to be able to answer that question. Team health, we realized, why do you care about team health? Well, it directly impacts the delivery quality and quantity. Some executives say, oh, I only care about hard metrics. I don't care if the team is healthy or not. Well, that's kind of a pretty immature way of understanding organizational performance, because if you don't, hard metrics are what we call trailing indicators. They tell you information after it's already done. Softer metrics and qualitative metrics are leading indicators. By understanding organizational health and team health, you are kind of ahead of the game. You are being a little bit more proactive by understanding what is about to happen before it happens. And the health of teams and programs directly relate to the quality and quantity of your deliverables. The other thing is we just needed consistency. So everybody can't come up with their own way. So we wanted something that we could all agree to and use across. I wanted an easy way to identify patterns across several teams. And again, remember that whole team voice. I want to hear the team. What are they saying they need help with? Let's stop assuming that we need to do this and we need to do that to help the teams. They need this training, they need that. Why don't we find out with real data what are the targeted areas that the team really needs help with? And again, I think we need to start engaging leaders. I mean, we've been standing up teams, and the focus is always on the teams. But I honestly wanted a way through this methodology that I'm going to explain to you in the tool to get leaders engaged and knowing that their responsibility is organizational health. You do need to start listening and removing organizational impediments, because that's how high performance is created, is when the leaders are engaged and they themselves are becoming servant leaders and helping remove some of these big issues and roadblocks. We wanted growth to be predictable and measurable. Again, we've always wanted a combination of qualitative and quantitative measures. I need to see both because both of them are very important. And the measurement, we wanted it at every level. So how can we measure individual health in terms of role-based assessments? So how are my product owners, scrum masters, testers, developers, how are we doing? How is the team doing? How is the program or portfolio doing? And then roll all that up into some level of an enterprise dashboard, because ultimately the goal is what we call enterprise health and business agility. I won't be able to play this video for you here because we're on a webinar, but when you have a minute after this, please do visit agilityhealthradar.com, and there is a 3-minute video by me, played by your host, that you can watch to understand a little bit more about Agility Health. So let's go through who cares about team health. Well, obviously the team themselves cares about it because they want to get better. Scrum masters and managers, their job is to remove impediments and make sure the team is healthy, so they care about overall team health. If you're an Agile coach, you care about assessing multiple teams very, very quickly so that you can develop a coaching plan. How am I going to help those teams in very targeted areas instead of having to absorb them? I mean, typically we used to do assessments and it would take us 2 to 3 weeks to just do an assessment, where now for a team, it takes 2.5 hours to do a team health retrospective assessment. As an organizational leader, if I'm a vice president or a senior manager or a CIO or an enterprise leader, what I care about is overall enterprise agility. So I want to see patterns across multiple programs, across portfolios, and find what are the common gaps and where can I help so that we can truly get better overall as an organization. So I'm going to take you now through this journey of what you should really be looking at the team level and how do you scale that up by introducing this idea of a team health radar. And the team health radar, before we dig deeper into it, basically has 5 dimensions. A healthy Agile team should have clarity on their vision and purpose, clarity on their plans, so iteration, release plan, roadmap. They should have clarity on their roles and responsibilities. They should also show me performance. So this is kind of the hard stuff, right? Performance has hard metrics that we need to be tracking, but it also has confidence. People ask me, what is the biggest indicator for team health and performance that I normally look at when I'm going into and looking at an Agile team? And to be honest, I kind of sit down with the product owner and I say, hey, product owner, how confident do you feel that this team is going to deliver on the current goals? Tell me your gut feel. How are you feeling about this? Hey team, I'm going to go sit with the various team members and basically say, how do you guys think things are going? And so we've actually added that here as a metric. This is a question that we do ask in the team health assessment, is how confident are we, and how confident are the stakeholders? Those are the people outside of the team, shared resources, managers, directors, other product owners, other business unit leaders. How confident do they feel that this team is going to deliver value? The other aspect is real measurement. So predictable velocity, time to market, value delivered, quantity, and responsiveness to change and quality. Um, the third dimension is what we call leadership health. In order for me to be a healthy agile team, remember we talked about that triangle. So how healthy is our product owner? How healthy are our technical leads? How healthy is my scrum master? And that's the leadership triangle. But I also added managers here. The reason we added managers is because managers can really make or break an agile team. A lot of managers are still doing a lot of the kind of what I call firefighting and day-to-day task management, where we really want them to actually step up a little bit, become more strategic, and focus on obviously being a servant leader, developing their people and growing them, and removing organizational issues and doing process improvements instead of day-to-day task management. A lot of agile teams are capable of doing that themselves now with the agile framework itself. The culture of the team. Many of you guys talked about this when you were just replying back to me in terms of measurements. One question we ask under team dynamics is what we call happiness. How happy are you working on this team? Are you collaborating? Do you solve problems together? Do you have trust and respect within this team? Are you allowed to be creative? Do you hold each other's back? Are you accountable to each other? So a lot of the stuff that you guys just came up with were basically the top ones that we picked as well. Foundation. So foundation's our last dimension. A healthy agile team has to have a healthy foundation for agility. Sustainable pace is a measure here, which is, I think one of you guys already talked about it. Are we burning out? Are we burning out and spending 60, 70 hours every single week? That will have an immediate reflection on quality. So teams that have low sustainable pace will also have low quality. Are we allowed to self-organize? Do we have technical excellence? Do we have the right software, tools, environment, standards, best practices? Are our meetings, agile meetings, are they effective or not? And then from a team structure perspective, do we have the right size and skills for this team? Are we allocated and are we stable or are we multitasking? And do we have the right physical or virtual environment? When a team goes through this assessment, this is sort of the results. And I'm going to switch over and actually show you the tool and how it works. But a team goes through a 2.5 hour, what we call team health retrospective, and we recommend that you do this once a quarter. So this is in addition. So you still have your normal retrospectives that happen every sprint, and those are just the normal 1 hour, what's working well in the last sprint, what do we need to improve in the next sprint. And that's what we call a tactical retrospective. It is really focused on how are we going to improve from the last sprint to the next sprint. This is considered a strategic team health retrospective. And that's why it's at least once a quarter that we recommend that you do it, because obviously it's much deeper. And so typically what we do is we have the team complete the survey. This is facilitated by a certified agility health facilitator, and many of you guys can become certified yourself if you have enough agile experience to lead and to facilitate team meetings. And the plots that you can see over here, every single dot represents a team member and how they voted. So what becomes very interesting as you analyze this, and I'm actually going to go to the tool now so you can see it in a little bit more detail. So I'm actually in a company here within Agility Health called A1 Finance. And A1 Finance has set up their multi-team, so they have a product line team, and then they also have some business operations, service and support, and it looks like they have 36 actually agile delivery teams. But let me go into this business as usual. This specific team has gone through multiple assessments, and so over time you can actually see that they're getting from here to here they got better, from here to here they actually got worse, and I'll show you that here in a little bit. But when I go ahead and click on an actual team health assessment, one of the things that you'll see is, like I kind of just showed you, there's sort of two different radars. There's the summary view and there is the detailed view. So everything that I just walked you through are what we call, this is a dimension. This is a subdimension, and these are the competencies. The view that really matters is what we call the detailed view. So when you're looking at the dots, um, one of the things I want you to see and notice is the gray area. The gray area tells me how much consensus and how much divergence we have within that team. So this team's actually pretty good. This team, and you should have seen their one before. And this is a real team. But obviously we changed their names and their data. But the before, they were not doing that well. They had really huge variance. The shading was very high, and a lot of the ratings were very low. But after a quarter of them improving, they have a lot more clarity on roles and responsibilities and not that much variance. So it looks like clarity is definitely improving on vision and purpose. From a performance perspective, the confidence of the product owner and the team has some good alignment, but look at their predictable velocity. So this team definitely needs work on their predictable velocity. I actually happen to know a little bit about this team. This team is very Kanban, very service and support. They get a lot of incoming requests that are not planned. And so this is an area for growth for them. Time to market, you know, they think they're doing okay, but some people don't feel like they're releasing as fast as possible. Value delivered is all over the place. Quality is not bad, it's sort of in the middle, but it still could obviously be improved. If you look at the leadership health of this team, they've gotten so much better. I'll show you their radar before. As you begin to look at the dots, and when the team looks at this together every quarter, they themselves are analyzing their radar. They themselves are kind of analyzing, what is the story telling me? And what I always say is the team is extremely smart if you allow them to analyze and assess their own health and see what's going on. They will know where do they need help, where do they need to do something internally to improve. Look at allocation and stability. So this is obviously a problem, probably why we don't have predictability. Why we don't have predictability is because we're not stable. People are multitasking like crazy, and you're pulling them in and out of our project all the time. Okay, so let's look down over here. This basically kind of gives me a summary from the radar. What are our top 5 competencies, lowest 5? Where do I have the highest consensus, lowest consensus? In addition to that, the team does actually supply what we call textual responses. So while they're completing the survey, they give us their strength. They also share their improvements. They talk about their impediments. And at the during this team health assessment or team health retrospective, what happens is the end result is a growth plan. And I've always said assessments are worthless if there is no action plan. They just become a fancy chart. So the result of this 2.5 hour session, in addition to them completing the survey, looking at their radar and analyzing it, is them developing a real action plan for the next quarter. What are they going to do to get better? One of the things that's important about the team's action plan is there are things that maybe individuals on the team should be able to fix and resolve. There are things that as a team they need to address, but the team also has the ability to say, nope, this is an organizational item. This is beyond me. This is something that I want my program or my portfolio or my executives and leaders to help me with. So organizational issues, and I'll show you here in a little bit, kind of get promoted. We can listen and hear the voice of the team. One thing we've also done here that was important is to hear the voice of, for example, different groups. So if I am, for example, and let me take you into one over here, let's go into this assessment. If I am, oh, and I don't have them over here, but if I'm a distributed versus a co-located, so that is something that we can look at. If I was distributed versus co-located, how's the India team responding versus the team that's in Europe or in America? That's another way that you'll be able to filter. So that kind of gives you an idea of across one team. Some of the things that we also realized, and obviously I want to compare. So Q1 versus Q2, how are those two doing against each other? Did the team actually really get better, Q1 versus Q2, in a quantitative way? So this is red was what they did before, how they voted before. And Q3, obviously, they did get much better in a lot of different dimensions. And some people want to know by what percent did we get better. And so that's why the table below actually says what percent improvement did we have for this specific team. So now the question becomes, how do we do this across multiple teams? And so one of the things that we've created here is the ability to create what we call a multi-team. So this auto product line team, if I click on it, really gives me what we call the multi-team view. So across multiple teams, so what you see here are multiple teams' radars. How are we doing? By analyzing a program or a product line or a portfolio, you're actually going to start seeing trends. For example, this team over here might need attention. This team over here tells you that for technical excellence, that is a issue across all of the teams. So this is what I call, this is the low-hanging fruit. Another issue that I noticed across all the teams for this program is roadmap maturity. All of the teams don't have visibility into the long-term roadmap for their products. So this view allows us to look at multiple teams against each other and basically kind of analyze for team one, team two, team three, team four, how are they doing? Now, I want to be very careful to tell you our goal is not to compare teams to each other, and that's why I typically do not have executives look at this table in detail. If I do show this to executives, we normally change the names of the teams to team A, B, C, D, E. I don't have a problem though with executives looking at this view because this does not show the names of the teams, but it does show the overall health of a program or a portfolio. Now, the people that are actually supposed to see the names of the teams are probably your program leadership team, where they really can look at and turn some of the
Yes,
teams on and
Sally,
off to
pretty
see
clear. There
which
were
team is
there
doing
were
what and
a few
how are they
seconds of
actually performing.
breakage, but
Amber, can everybody
wasn't
hear me okay?
substantial.
Can
But
you
I
hear me
guess
okay,
some
Amber? Am I still coming
users might
across
be
pretty clear?
facing prolonged, but largely I was able to hear you loud and clear.
Excellent. Very good. So the other problem we wanted to solve with this that was impossible for us to do before is I just want to hear the voice of all of the developers. How are my developers doing? Are they happy? Are they not happy across the whole program? How are my QA testers doing across the whole program? How did they rate everything? Right? So this is kind of what we call a community or practice view. It's a role-based view. I want to see what the product owners versus the scrum masters are saying, right? Are they in alignment or are they not in alignment with each other? So this is what we call sort of a role-based filtering. Again, the goal from all of this is to obviously analyze across multiple teams and see what are some of the common patterns and the common issues that they're having. Again, remember, assessments mean nothing if there's no growth plan. So at the bottom of this page, what you are going to see at the multi-team level is a roll-up of all of the organizational issues that the sub-teams have already reported. And the reason we have this is because I expect program teams, portfolio teams, and product management teams to pull these items, which we did pull them here, and put them into their growth backlog. So, and then prioritize them and obviously start working on them. So this becomes the backlog for the multi-team. And honestly, I want to hold you guys accountable as well. So I always say that, with Agility Health, what we're trying to create here is a continuous improvement framework where at the team level, there's continuous improvement and growth every quarter. At the program and product line, there is continuous growth every quarter, and all of that should roll up into an enterprise health dashboard. The last part that I want to show you here that's important is metrics, hard metrics. So this team, for example, did actually also enter in what we call their quantitative metrics. And so at the very bottom of the same page, you will see that because they have put in their iteration data and their release data, and I can show you that we are now capable of seeing their burn up chart. So how many points did they have on their backlog? What's their scope? And how is it increasing from iteration to iteration? So this is what we call the scope line. This is how much work this team is trying to get done in every iteration. This is what we call target versus actual. So how many points did they target to get done versus actual? What is the current percent done for this team? So, I mean, this is easy to calculate, guys. They've got 220 points. They've only completed 75 points, so they're 34% done. The good news about this team is they are 74% predictable, which means there's not a huge gap. It's still not great. I like to aim for 85 to 90% predictability or above. So if the team targets to get X number of points done, they should be within 10 to 15% of that. That is a healthy Agile team. Many Agile teams have lower predictability right now, but it's a metric that we should be tracking from a hard perspective. This team's average velocity is 15 points per iteration. You can see their percent scope change. So this tells me how good is the product owner at managing the scope and removing and adding. So in Agile, we remove stories, we add stories, but this is only a 10% scope creep for this project, so that's not too bad. This is not good. They have 25 escape defects over 5 iterations. That's something that this team should probably look into. And time to completion, in order for them to finish their 220 points, they've already finished 75. So the difference between that is going to take them minimum 10 iterations. I would say add 2. So the reason we've got +2 here is because we've already calculated some buffering. No team really executes perfect on basic perfect velocity. So normally you always want to add some of the buffering iterations. So really, I would say it will take 12 iterations for this team to finish their current goal. This team also has a release health chart. So for this release number 3, how many points did we target to get done versus actual? How many business value points did we target to get done versus actual? And how many escape defects did we have? What was our target date of release and what was our actual date of release? And I think we also have the percentages, features delivered, value delivered, and escape defects. So I just wanted to show you all of this because, again, as we were talking about it, it really takes a combination of qualitative and quantitative measures to really understand how the team is doing. And our recommendation is that you do this every quarter. You kind of do this plan, grow, measure, and iterate again every quarter. You basically do assessments for all of your Agile teams once a quarter. You take all that data as input into a strategy planning session for the quarter. You go ahead and execute the changes. Usually it's change management. There might be training that you need to do for your teams. I don't think every single person in the company needs to be trained. So obviously we've also created agilevideos.com as a platform for on-demand learning and self-learning. Some people might need to learn some things on their own. So there could be a combination of training, internal or external training, or using and leveraging like the e-learning platforms. Maybe there's coaching. Maybe these teams need coaches. They need someone to show them how to do test-driven development. And so those could be internal coaches that you develop or external consultants that help you. And then finally, you would end this quarterly iteration with a demo and a retrospective, as we normally do in Agile, and reassess all the teams again so that you can see before and after. And this is where the leadership team, the program team, the product line team, or even the Agile transformation team reports back to all the teams which organizational items did they actually get done. This is two-way accountability, guys. Teams are accountable for getting their growth items done at the team level, but I also want to hold programs and product lines and leaders accountable for removing obstacles that the teams have already exposed at the organizational level. So this is a continuous, Agility Health basically provides you with a continuous quarterly growth process so that growth is predictable and measurable. I added a lot of slides here that you guys can download, and I've already kind of covered a lot of this with you in terms of hard metrics, also cost tracking per iteration. And this whole module I am not going to cover today. I just wanted to give you a sneak peek of what's coming up in our next webinar, which is how do we measure program health, portfolio health, and some of the work that we're doing with the Scaled Agile framework and the radars that we've created if you are using SAFe or Scaled Agile framework. So I think I'm going to go ahead and stop now and take um, these are the certifications, by the way. If you want to get certified, you can learn about our certifications. But for many of you that are familiar with QAI Global, they are our partner in India. And if you do want to get any team health assessments created, or if you do have some teams that you want to pilot this with, I highly recommend that you reach out to the QAI Global team. And they can basically deliver a lot of the baseline assessments for you, do the initial strategy, and then help you get some additional internal people to get certified. So let's go
Great,
ahead
thank
and
you.
take questions. If you do want to download
Oh
this
yes, we have loads
presentation
of
and the
them,
blank
Sally.
radar,
Thank
please
you.
go ahead and
We
complete
just
the form
about
here
have
and
three to
make
four
sure you enter
minutes.
this promo code
We'll
so
try
that
and
we can
see
get
if
some of these
people want to
giveaways.
stay on voluntarily. Would you have additional time with you, Sally, in
So go
case
ahead,
we
Amber. Do we
need
have
to
more
stretch a couple of
questions?
minutes? Okay, wonderful. Wonderful. Shooting right away. Arpita asks, Agile software development projects typically don't use a formal quality assurance process, but they do
Yes,
employ
I will stay
techniques for
5 more
ensuring
minutes
software
past the
quality.
webinar to
How do you
answer as
marry
many questions
this,
as I can. Yep.
along with the agility health assessment that you just walked us through?
I think the team needs to define what is their quality assurance process. I mean, I also have an agile team, and we do have a quality and testing strategy. So as a team, we agree together on, first of all, what's the definition of done for a story? So that's one part of quality is when do we consider a story done by developers and from a testing perspective? We have clear acceptance criteria for each story, and that definitely adds to the level of quality. We have a test automation strategy. So what automated tests are we going to create at the unit level, at the UI level, and how frequently are we going to do regression testing and smoke testing? So even though Agile doesn't have a formal, here's the only way to do it, every team using Agile best practices, and actually, if you look at extreme programming, there's a lot of best practices around testing and regression testing and test-driven development and all of that. The way we marry it from a measurement perspective is all of that should help me reduce escape defects, right? So from the measurement tool that you saw right now, the only thing I really care about that I want to ask, and so you'll see that in our assessment survey, is from the qualitative perspective, we ask the team what level of satisfaction do they have with the amount of quality, so their escape defects and the amount of rework that they're doing. And then from a hard metric perspective, we basically have the team track the number of escape defects per
Thank you, Sally. I
iteration and
hope
per
that
release.
answers
So that's
Arpita's
how all
question.
of that really
Moving into the
translates
next
into
one,
bottom line,
Sandeep
better
Anand
quality of
asks, how do we get
application now
estimation for
that you've
Agile
created
project,
all
and do
of
we
those
have any limit
strategies
for
and
the same?
processes.
I don't think it's yes. Yes, as much. Yeah. Perfect. Yeah, I guess as much. But Sandeep Anand, I hope
Estimation,
you take note and
that's
are
not
able to
relevant to the
use
current
Sally's
seminar,
video
but I will ask you
series
to go
for
to
answering this question in
agilevideos.com
detail.
and under
Sunil Peter
under
asked when you were
webinars, they have
showing
a
about
webinar
the
called
use
Agile
of
Estimating and
the
Planning.
agility health radar to the different stakeholders. You mentioned about managers, and this question was, doesn't Scrum discourage managers, and it is against self-organizing teams? I guess the context of your managers is different. Please go ahead, Sally.
Yeah, yeah. Yeah, no. So the reason we added managers to the radar, they are not part of the core team. They are not in the ceremonies. But what we realized, what we began to see is the transforming the role of a manager is one of the biggest challenges that you are going to have within your organization. And so that's why having the team give feedback to their direct resource managers on how they are doing in terms of servant leadership. So first of all, don't direct me and tell me what to do because that kind of is going to break self-organization, but go ahead and grow me and help grow my skill set. Managers don't focus on firefighting and task management and being tactical anymore. Please focus a little bit more strategically on process improvement. The reason we added them to the radar is because we do want to elevate and help transition that role in a healthy way. So by putting them in the radar, they are still a stakeholder. They are not part of the core team, but we found that they are an integral and critical part of the success of an agile team.
Wonderful
And so
answer,
managers
Sally.
do have a
Deepu
role,
Krishnan
and we
asked, do
wanted to
you
be
have any
clear on what
metric
that
to
role
measure the
really is, which is
productivity in Agile
growing people on
Scrum?
the team, leading communities of practice, improving processes, and being servant leaders. No longer task management if you're mature in the agile world. Yeah, productivity is a measure of predictability. So if you look at the metrics that we just showed you, when we went back to the hard metrics, the velocity, predictability, not the actual points per iteration. I don't care if it's 100 points per iteration or 20 points per iteration, but your predictability is a very key measure of productivity. The quality, the releases, so the number of releases and the business value delivered and the number of points per release. A lot of the hard metrics that I just showed you are how we measure the productivity of an agile team. And you are going to see that these metrics have a
Yeah, I
direct
guess, and that
relationship
also
to
comes
the
into the
team's health.
linkage of the
If the team is not
maturity and
healthy and you see
overall
that they don't have a
moving
healthy
level
leadership team,
over the
they don't
agile
have
journey.
clarity, their
Shiv
foundation
Prasad
is weak, their
asks, what are the
culture is weak,
challenges that companies
those numbers are
face
all going to be
during
lower
measurements,
than a
if
high
any? So
performing
I
team.
guess your metrics, provoked a lot of these questions, but important ones.
I think the most important part of measuring is to have a consistent approach, and honestly, that's why we created this. We're not a product development company; we are agilist ourselves, and we're agile coaches, we're practitioners. I'm an executive myself. I think having just a consistent way of doing it, and then doing it in a repetitive fashion. So every quarter, like not making it just well every now and then. Let's measure. Let's not measure. Some teams are going to do it. Some teams are not going to do it. I think getting agile teams excited about self-assessing themselves and knowing and being confident that the areas that they really need help with are going to be addressed by the leaders. So I would say a bad thing to do is to start doing these measurements, but not do anything about them, not repeat them again, not actually have the leaders help the teams, and not making them consistent. Another really bad thing to do or a challenge is to think that you could use this team health radar to reward or punish the agile team, their managers, or the vice presidents that are above them and directors. If you begin to use the health radar as a way of punishing or rewarding any of these levels, then you will never see the truth again. The teams will never be open and honest about how they are really doing. So again, that's
Right.
why we certify people. That's why not
Mira
everybody can use
Samaha
this tool
just typed
without
out
being
saying which
certified or going
went
to
through
one of
the
our
team
partners,
health measurements, but what
because
about the
we want it to
individuals?
be
Any
done in a high
suggestions, Sally?
quality way and mitigate a lot of the risks associated with measurements. Yeah, I just didn't have enough time to cover it here, but part of Agility Health, we have what we call a Scrum Master Health Radar, Product Owner Health Radar, Developer Health Radar, Test. So what we've created is what we call individual 360 assessments. And it's basically your way as a Scrum Master or as a tester or as a developer. And we recommend those once every 6 months, that I can get feedback from everybody else on the team on how I'm doing. And so you get to see a beautiful radar just like that one, but the radar is split into two halves. On the right side, which is what we call your right brain, is how are you getting along with everybody on the team? How are your interpersonal skills? Are you a good team player or not? Do you follow the team norms? On the left side, which is your left brain, are all of your technical skills. So as a product owner, as a scrum master, as a developer tester,
Hey,
we're going
great.
to ask specific
Sally, I think
questions
that's
about your
all the time
role
we could
and how you
spare.
are doing within that role,
And
and the
what I
team
would
will give
do
you
is
feedback.
there
So
were
instead of
some
just the
questions
manager
left
giving you
unanswered.
feedback, we're hoping
So
this will
what I
be a
would
new
do is
way
post this
of
over to you
measuring
over mail, and
agile teams and
for the
roles
benefit of the
moving
participants, we
forward.
will post this back on our website and send a link to the participants so that those questions could get answered. We're just over 5 minutes over time, Sally, and thank you for the outstanding presentation. We're out of time today. So I want to thank everyone for attending. Sure, Sally, please go ahead.
No problem. Yeah, I just wanted if
Perfect,
people
wonderful.
are
While
still
I do
there, I just
the
want you to
wrap
put
up,
feedback
Sally,
in
that's a
your
great
chat.
thing to
Did you
pick up
enjoy this?
quick
Did this kind
bites
of
from the
answer the questions
participants.
you
We
were
have
looking for?
majority of
Was
the
this a valuable
participants
use of
still
your time?
hanging
I always like to
around,
do a quick retrospective. So just give me their
we'd
comments so
like
I
to
can
thank
kind of see
everyone for
what
attending
everybody
today's
thought about the
webinar.
seminar.
The recording of this, as I said before, along with a copy of the presentation slides, will be made available to all the participants through our website link and mailed to them. And we'd also have links of previously recorded webinars archived in our website. We'd love to share them with these participants. If you have any team members or colleagues that you think would enjoy this webinar, please encourage them to visit our website, qaiagile.com. And we will be coming up with new series of webinars, both by Sally and other Agilists. So watch out the space and mailers. And this now concludes today's webinar. It's been my pleasure to host all of you, and I'm sure Sally and all of you had a great time. And we'd hope to see you all back again. And don't forget to keep track of our webinars coming up soon. Thank you for joining us, and have a great day ahead, Sally. And Sally, thank you specifically for waking up middle of night, almost early morning US time. So I hope you got a couple of comments there. And once again, wrapping up and signing out for today. Have a great day ahead, everyone, and thank you, everybody. Great evening for India.
No problem. It was my pleasure. Thank you, everybody.